for this project.
Where you go, don't. Or you just buy out the- How are you? Paste the beer. Are you good? Okay. All right, so. We're ready, everyone ready to rock and roll? Okay, so. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Again, thank you for your patience. The time is 7:13 in the evening. So we are running a little shy on the schedule. We'll try to pick up the pace. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ask everyone to rise for the pledge of allegiance, if you please. The pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Morning.
Somebody to confirm they can hear and see.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Steve Biella, can you, because I know he's not, can you hear us? Okay, Steve?
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Excellent. And so I'm gonna assume that everyone is good to go. We should do a roll call for the meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Hold up the ZBA roll call. June Daly. Here. Angelou Millard. Here. Diane Shorsey.
Here.
Timothy Sigma.
Here.
Brian Rogan.
Here.
Kevin Beely. Here. Scott Emo.
Excused.
Alternate Steve Biella.
Here,
Alternate John Dyken.
Okay, terrific.
Do you wish, one side of a fall?
Okay, so we're gonna seek an alternate, however, I'm trying to figure out which one.
It's appropriate. This is Jennifer Capola from Steel and Joffrey Corporation Council for the record. It would be appropriate to set Mr. Biella, because, your other alternate, my recollection, John, is that you missed a meeting.
I agree, correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Stephen, just so you understand, you'll be, seated for the meeting this evening.
okay,
All right, thank you. And I do know that we will have some public, opinions that will be shared, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands we have a sign-up sheet. So, please, if you're interested in addressing the commission, write legibly, your name and your address, and, we'll note your comments.
And we'll watch for raised hands on the, or another indication online.
Okay, terrific. All right, so let's move forward. And the first one is the executive session, public comment on possible action and proposed stipulation for judgment. I'm gonna use this microphone because it seems to work best for most folks.
If anybody who is online, cannot hear me, again, this is Attorney Capola. If you cannot hear me at any point in time, please do raise your hand and let me know, and I'll raise my voice. Hopefully everybody can hear clearly. I have a little bit of an issue, so I'm gonna try to speak as clearly as I can. I have a little problem with my mouth, but so we're here tonight principally for the commission to take public comment on a potential settlement in the pending lawsuit of Little House Living LLC versus the Planning and Zoning Commission, and its docket number LND HHD CV 23-616-5456. And there was a application that had been submitted to Little House Living, from Little House Living to the Planning and Zoning Commission that had been denied. There were applications for special permit and site plan approval pursuant to the old section 11 DD of your zoning regulations, which was amended earlier this year. And so this stipulation for judgment, Maureen, I don't know if you would like to put it up. So folks, I see it appears that, some folks in the audience may have maybe the draft, site plans, element site plans that, the stipulated judgment does set forth just very briefly at the start, the background regarding the underlying action concerns. Then it goes into the general terms and conditions, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the stipulation itself and also the procedure, after which, Zach Georgina is online, from Giuliano Associates, and the project engineer. He's gonna take you through the proposed, settlement plan, if you will, the new site plan set. And then we'll move to public comment. The commission may decide that it may want to have an executive session, and that's fine, that's on the agenda. If there's anything that you want to talk about, after you receive all the comments tonight. And then you'll decide whether or not you're gonna take action or not take action tonight. And we'll go from there, so go ahead.
Which, do you want me to share the red line or the
Sure, the red line's fine.
red line?
You can share that.
Red line, that one as well.
Doesn't make it all the way around town. Thank you.
So again, just taking you through, because we are a little bit delayed, I'm gonna jump right in. Those beginning paragraphs of the stipulation, the opening paragraph, again, just introduces the parties and the underlying subject matter of the appeal itself, so the prior applications. And then it does indicate in paragraph 2 that subsequent to the appeal being brought on those prior applications or denial by the commission of those prior applications, that the plaintiff submitted 830G applications to the commission for a text amendment and also a new site plan. And during the public hearing, the plaintiff argued that there's a need for affordable housing in town, and that the town is not exempt from the affordable housing appeals procedure that's in 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes, because 10% of the town's housing stock is not affordable. So the statute does provide that to be exempt from the procedure, that the town has to have 10% affordable housing stock. The public hearings, again, just where we are procedurally on those pending 830G applications, the pending applications, the public hearings have been closed, but the commission has not voted on those yet. The deadline to vote on those applications has been extended, and this was by agreement with the applicant, to January the 3rd, 2024. So then, and on that paragraph 5 on page 2 of the stipulation, it's the intent of the parties to resolve these matters without the time, expense, and risk of further litigation, and without any admission of liability or fault. So I just want to make a comment about that. It is, I would say this too, I've been practicing land use law for 25 years now. It is the expectation of the court that in these matters, one of the first things they do when they get an appeal is they talk to counsel for the parties about resolving the matter. The municipality and the applicant, or if it's a neighboring property or that feeling, they're always encouraged to engage in settlement negotiations. Settlement as a public policy is something that is very important to our jurisprudence. So, you know, this is why at different stages, we always look to resolve. Because we are very much encouraged to do that by the court. And of course, it oftentimes is in the best interest of the party, because you just don't know how the litigation will turn out. Oftentimes it is difficult to tell, right? What the court might do with a particular appeal. So paragraph 6, parties stipulate that judgment should enter in these matters in accordance with the terms and conditions contained in herein. As far as resolution of matters, parties can settle matters by a settlement. Sometimes those settlements are written, they're filed with the court, or they're otherwise recorded orally. And then sometimes we do what's known as a stipulated judgment. A judgment is different than just doing a plain settlement, because a judgment has the force of law behind it. It becomes an order of the court. So again, I said to you, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about procedure. This is very important. Why we're here tonight is because our rules of practice require that, when we potentially are looking at settling this type of matter, that settlement or stipulation, if there's a stipulation, that it appear on an agenda of the commission for the public to comment on the terms. So that's why we're here, okay? And where are we going? So if you authorize me tonight to execute the stipulation on the commission's behalf, the next stage is we have to hold in court what's known as an 8-89 hearing. That's referring to the general statute that requires the hearing, and it's what puts essentially the stipulation before the court for review and consideration. And what we do as a matter of practice is, and this has evolved over time, but we will publish notice of the 8-8N hearing in the newspaper so that any interested members of the public can also attend that hearing. Now, during COVID, those hearings became remote. They're now starting to be hearings again in person. I can't tell you, we don't have a date yet, of course, for that. Well, if I'm authorized to pursue the stipulation with Attorney Smith and get it filed and finalized and filed all that with court, we'll get assigned that date. And we will publish a notice in the newspaper, and that notice will include the details of how you will participate in that hearing. If you're interested in participating, you do have the opportunity to actually address the court. They do take comments from the public. And through the years, I've had a number of them, and sometimes, the public does appear, again, whether that's in person or remotely, and you have that opportunity. So I just want to say that to you so that you know, that's another part of our process. And once the court hears from the parties, will counsel for the parties, and then hears from any interested members of the public that appear at that hearing, then the court will decide whether or not to enter the stipulation as a judgment. So we file it as a motion for entry of stipulated judgment, and we attach the stipulation, and so the court's acting on that motion. They'll grant it or approve it, or deny it. So in terms of just general, and I'm not going to cover all the paragraphs, but of the stipulation, I'm on the bottom of page 2, the general terms and condition of the stipulation. The purpose is to, and this is A1, 7A1, the purpose of the specific terms is to enable development of the property pursuant to the site plan that's described in detail in a subsequent section, section 7B, and more fully set forth in the site plan that Mr. Georgian is going to talk to you about, which will be attached as Exhibit A to the stipulation. And of course, next paragraph, plaintiff is agreeing to comply with all requirements of the law, right? And it goes on. I'm not going to read paragraph 3, but you can read that. But in terms of the settlement plan itself, so the process that we're following here, what's proposed, and this is another little different thing because it's done in different ways. Sometimes you'll get where, and I'll just use an example, you may get a conceptual plan. So not something as detailed as an actual plan set, but maybe just the layout. And if any of you have participated in any meetings of the commission, this will sound familiar to you, where you attach as the settlement plan, just a conceptual plan, and then it's contemplated that there'll be another full process. But this is so far advanced that we're doing something a little differently here. What it contemplates is that the final plan set and the approval of that final plan set is going to be done by the town planner, and other officials of the town. Okay, because we have really a full plan set at this point that's been discussed. And obviously there were so many iterations of this plan, before, the appeal was taken, the initial denials on those applications. So, just jumping to the general terms and conditions, what's contemplated, and this is, B1A on page 3, is 6 2-unit duplex residential buildings and 2 3-unit triplex residential buildings. So there's gonna be a total of 18 units, and that was the number on the plan that got denied. And the parties specifically agree that no additional housing units will be constructed. And then there's, some specifics about the bulk requirements of, those duplex and triplex buildings in terms of, square footage and the footprints and the height and so forth. They're all gonna be, 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths with a garage. And then one is gonna be an accessible unit, a type A accessible unit. Again, we've got height requirements in this towards the end for the residential buildings, as well as the community center that there's going to be as an amenity. So the center island, the unit is coming out of there that was originally proposed. There's gonna be a community center, and then there's also gonna be a property maintenance room that's connected to that. And an overhead garage door. You'll see further on too, is mentioned that there's contemplated a pervious patio area and a fire pit. So a lot was talked about as far as quality of life, so that amenity, has been negotiated to address the concerns with regard to that. And then plaintiff has agreed to 20% affordable, so that's 4 housing units, we have 18. They're gonna be deed restricted at 80%. So this is what's required by your rec, your info rec. There's details with regard to that, there's an affordability plan, there's a lot of specifics about that. As far as that's concerned, what we may talk about that with the commission at the end. I don't want to get into that right now because I want to get to Zach. But there's been quite a bit of discussion about architecturals. The architecturals are posted. This is in C, bottom of page 4. The landscaping and the streetscape, material design standards, lighting, fencing, and signage. So you see details. When I drafted this stipulation, I wanted to point out some specific things to draw attention, because there was a lot of focus on certain areas. The architecturals are going to be craftsman in nature. They'll have a natural color palette. In terms of landscaping, there's been a lot of back and forth about trying to keep those existing trees and other vegetation. And the commission did request that a registered consulting arborist be retained, and person with those credentials is going to be retained to prepare and execute a plan to try to preserve and maintain those existing trees that are in sensitive locations. Lighting was discussed as well, so that's in there. And then fencing that's been talked about, I know this is a big issue with the neighbors, was doing block estate fencing. And the reason for that was with regard to just in terms of what would be best to maintain the trees, that the new plantings as well as the existing. But because what's contemplated is not just as far as your buffer, not just trees, but also understory trees, and then of course sort of lower vegetation, if you will, bushes and shrubs and all of that. So there's a lot of detail that Zach will go through that with you. I'll just say something too, that center area, the island area, if you will, the community courtyard area. I talked about the community center property maintenance room. The residents' mailboxes are going to be constructed on the exterior. There's going to be parking spaces there too. And in the northwest corner, Zach will point this out to you, There's also gonna be a community recreation or terrace area as well. And all the housing units are gonna have a patio in the rear separated by a privacy fence. The parking will be reviewed, but again, every unit is going to have, its own garage. And then in terms of stormwater, there are some changes. Because, now we have that central courtyard area actually being used as well. Which really is gonna enable them to keep things on site. So Zach will cover that. As far as, and this is standard, I'm on page 7, number 5, 7B5, I think it is. The time frame for completion is 5 years, that's standard. There's the ability to get extensions. Those are permitted by the general statutes, but that has to be approved by the commission unless otherwise provided if something changes in the future with regard to that. So, you can read the details of that. A lot of the remainder of it is just like we're talking about. Obviously, they have a wetlands permit. So there's some things that have to be worked out with that. There's an enforcement provision in there. And in the circumstance where somebody's not performing, that's the thing about a judgment. I just want to point out, and this is one of my final points. The thing about a judgment is that you have the court in the position of having continuing jurisdiction. So when somebody's not performing pursuant to the terms of the judgment, a party is able to go back and ask the court to enforce the terms of the judgment. So that's why lawyers like judgments, rather than just, again, some settlement agreement that may or may not be in writing and so on and so forth. So we always look to do a judgment because it sets expectations for how everybody is going to perform. Stipulation is going to be recorded on the land records after the court enters the stipulation as a judgment. And page 8, paragraph 11 talks about the continuing jurisdiction concept. If somebody defaults, there's a provision in there about being able to get costs, and otherwise we're each bearing our own costs. And then we've got the terms inuring to the benefit and binding upon successors and assigns of the parties. So I think that's on page 9. Just point out to you at paragraph 17, immediately following the court hearing, the 8 a.m. hearing, in the entry of the judgment. And after the expiration of any applicable judicial appeal timeframe, because there's an appeal timeframe there, then the pending applications, which are the 830G applications, will be withdrawn. And if in the event, and this is something else, if there's any reason, because we try to anticipate anything that could happen, paragraph 18, in the event that the stipulation is not approved and there is judgment by the court, or that the time frames contained in paragraph 17, which I just talked about, extends beyond January 3rd again, which is the deadline for the commission to act on the pending applications. The parties have agreed that the commission has 30 days from the date of the court hearing to act on those pending applications. And it says notwithstanding, and this is proposed by Attorney Smith, notwithstanding any provision of the stipulations, date by which the commission has to act on pending application shall not extend beyond February 23rd, 2024. So we're, just kind of putting something in there in case, everything isn't work out as anticipated. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to turn it over to Zach. Zach, why don't you go ahead with the plan that line, if you can just add it out so we can share. Thank you. Thanks, Zach.
Not a problem. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm transmitting loud enough.
Yes, excellent.
Fantastic. All right, let us share screen. We want screen 2 and share. Everyone can now see my screen, correct?
Yes, we
Fantastic. Okay, so For the commission, this should look fairly familiar. For the public, I believe this is probably the first time you guys are seeing this, unless you have pulled the documents from the town's website or town hall. So let's just go through exactly what we have here, what we're all looking at, get everyone on the same page. So the site itself hasn't changed. It's that same 1.9 acre parcel. What has changed is we have, as was stated, pulled the residents out of the center. We are proposing 18 units now to consist of 8 buildings, 6 of which are duplexes. I'll zoom in a hair here just to make this a little bit larger, and 2 of which are triplexes, as we can see here. So we're just consolidating the building, so there's less building space. This has allowed us to pull the buildings off the side yards a bit. So we are maintaining that previously approved through wetlands, that 21-foot setback, as well as in the backyards, we are now at a 46-foot setback from the property line to the buildings. We have also tightened in this area for the courtyard with a 20-foot wide drive aisle. And with a focus on this open space in the courtyard, opening it up a bit, we do have a community courtyard of 4,339 square feet. In addition to this, just by tightening everything up a little bit, by increasing the duplex and the triplex count, we have been able to make almost a 5,000 square foot community terrace, but essentially a lawn and nature area in the rear. And that exactly is 4,795 square feet. So some decent open green space in this area. Up front, you will notice that there's a concern for health, safety, and sound. We're proposing 2 4-foot high earthen berms along the Berlin Turnpike. This will not only mitigate sound, but as the site does drop away, it will act as both a visual barrier and, once planted, a pretty good sound barrier with using the vegetation and the earth itself. We've included a couple of visitor parking spaces, 3 up front, 4 centrally located. We're still utilizing the stacked parking approach with a garage space and a driveway space for each individual unit. We have brought a sidewalk around the center area to allow for some community transportation and walking, sidewalks to allow for defined passage from the center area to the rear community terrace, and coming up front, likewise, a sidewalk going up to the Berlin Turnpike for access for the bus stop. In addition, as mentioned, the units will feature an 8x10 pervious paver patios. Each unit will have their own dedicated patio area, a vinyl privacy fencing, and between the buildings itself, there will be a vinyl split rail fence, just to try and delineate exactly where everybody's own smaller zone within the community areas are. As mentioned we will be using that black estate fencing along the back. That fence is designed to wrap up a bit along the wetland side, extend along just along the inside of our property on the against those existing evergreens, and wrap back up towards the swale that exits from our property. And this just is to deter any foot traffic back to access Holly Court and just maintain our traffic on site and discourage any trespassing that may or may not ever occur. As mentioned, we do have this community center right up front. As you can see the layout here, I'll just zoom in so we can see what we're looking at. We have these dedicated parking spaces, a small covered porch area. The community center itself, we can go into some of the internals later on, but is essentially here with a garage space for the property maintenance room. And this room would allow for storage of yard maintenance material, mowers, weed whackers, and items necessary to maintain the property. The community center will feature a pervious patio out back, a fire pit, and as mentioned, there will be exterior what's called a mailbox cluster, but the community mailboxes will be located on the outside of the building for easy access for postal employees as well as for the residents. And there will be a package drop slot which will allow Amazon, UPS, whatnot, for larger packages to physically drop them in, which would go into the community center into a receptacle for anyone in the community to come in, unlock the community center, get their package, keeps things nice and safe. Zooming out here a bit, we do have, as mentioned, the 4 affordable units. We've spread them out with 2 of them located in the triplexes, 1 of them located on the northern side along the wetlands in a duplex, and 1 of them located along the rear of the property on the Holly Court side. In addition, we do have the affordable unit, or not affordable, the ADA acceptable unit, which I believe is a type 1. Pat, feel free to correct me later on if I'm wrong with that, but I believe it's a type 1 of the accessible units. This will come in, has a van accepted parking space. As I have mentioned previously in executive session, I don't believe this will be marked on the pavement. We don't typically see that in residential, but this is the assigned space is wider here to accommodate for that van access. This is also one of the flatter units in terms of grade, so it should be very conducive to that configuration. All right, let's move on to stormwater, because I know that that is a concern and things get a little bit interesting just with the redesign here. I understand that this is a lot to look at here, but what we have is we have essentially what I'm going to refer to as System B. System B is now in the courtyard. It is consisted of 24 Coltech 820 HD units. It is designed solely to take water from 2 duplexes on the south, the triplex on the south, on the north side, 1 triplex, and 1 duplex from the north. All this water is being directed into these. The system is designed so that water flows in. It starts to infiltrate as the storm continues to dump water in. It will raise up. Once it gets to an overflow point with an outflow pipe, that pipe is directed into our System A's catch basin network, which will transport that along to System A itself. System A, again, a Coltech unit. This is an HD 180. Unfortunately, we had to go for a shallower unit just due to the groundwater in this area, but it is a larger field. This system is designed to handle all of the remaining impervious surface. We're pulling all of these buildings in directly into this unit. The drive aisles and parking will be collected by 4 catch basins, which will direct this water into a Coltech isolator row. It's designed to filter out any particulates, trash that have made it through the catch basin network, preventing them from getting further into the infiltration system. This again will fill up. As it fills up along the backside, we have 4 overflow pipes at the top of the system, designed so when we start to get to that high water situation in this infiltrator, it will bleed the water off into our level spreader that will then release the water off the property. All of this was done with the goals of conforming to both state and local municipal requirements. Couple of things that we had to meet. One is stormwater quality. That requires us to provide adequate storage for minimum the first inch of a storm. That's where you're going to get all of your oils, contaminants, whatnot that you typically see. You want to get that infiltrated on site instead of just passing that along. So we have to provide that volume. We do provide that volume. The equations themselves are on the sheet. I can walk you through them if you want, but we can just do a quick summary here where the total storage provided. We were required to provide with the 2004 regulations, just 2,933 cubic feet. We're providing 4,500 cubic feet of storage. So we far exceed that. As such, we do meet the 2024 version of that regulation, which is coming online shortly. And that requires storage for the first 1.25 inches of a storm event. So that would end up being that 3,821 cubic feet. We are providing, again, that 4,518 cubic feet. So we meet that requirement. In addition to that, we are decreasing stormwater runoff. Going through, I'm going to jump from this over to my storm. Hold on a second. Just bear with me 1 sec. Shrink this down because the controls for that are up top. I want to go over here. Thank you. We're going to just jump down to our tables. And so historically, with the site's previous development, essentially we were looking at, for a 100-year storm event, 11.5 cubic feet of water were leaving the site. This water was, hitting the existing buildings, the existing driveway they had, and the existing greenery. And this is based on the infiltration rates of those surfaces, what the water leaving the site was. Our proposed, even with an increase in impervious, we are looking at going from 11.5 cubic feet of peak flow off the site down to 9.5 cubic feet. So that's a fairly sizable reduction just in straight flow numbers. In addition to that, I went through the exercise of, and this is beyond what the state or local requires, and reviewed the actual infiltration volumes into the ground. And we're essentially removing close to 29,000 gallons of water that would normally just be sheet flowing into the wetlands previously. So we're infiltrating the size of a residential 20 by 40 swimming pool. We're taking that and we're putting that directly into the ground instead of just letting that flow offsite like it does currently. So that is the summary for the stormwater system and how that works. You can see here where we have some of the grading. You can see the berms up front along the Berlin Turnpike. And let's move on to the landscaping plan, which I believe is going to be our major concern for aesthetics and such. We have done quite a focus on landscaping, especially along the Holly Court side, but let's work our way in from the Berlin Turnpike. As I said, we are going to have these 2 earthen berms. They're going to be planted with arborvitae along the peak, with some 8-foot bushes that are rhododendron and inkberry in an alternating pattern along the inside to just create this wall of greenery for the residents, while also shielding the Berlin Turnpike from looking at our structures. As we come in along the central aisle, the focus here was on canopy trees. So we're looking at trees that are getting close to that 30-40 foot in height with some good spread. So this should feel like driving into a forest, more or less, where you're coming in, and once these trees have hit maturity, there will be span and shade coming in here, and you're not going to be driving into a very stark, barren, just grass area. It'll be very well landscaped, as we're proposing around the central courtyard. To the north, we are proposing, due to construction, we are going to lose some of these existing greeneries. We are proposing to replace them with arborvitae, essentially a solid hedgerow just on the inside of the property line to allow that to grow. As we come down here, and we are going to have to do some removal of a couple of these, the evergreens in the northwest corner. We're looking to replace those again with arborvitae, planting them around the level spreader unit, and to plant these on center between the piping to allow for the arborvitae to grow, thrive, create this greenery shield in the back, and close in our rear terrace area. As we come along to the back, and I have a detail to explain this a little bit better to just help visualize, because there's a lot going on here, but what we're proposing again is to create this natural feeling buffer. So we're going to be doing our best to maintain all of these existing evergreens, coming in and planting again more shade trees in that 30 to 40 foot height, mature height range, and then alternating 8-foot evergreen bush plantings of the inkberry and rhododendron along the back. And this will create a visual buffer, a very natural looking, should once mature look just like looking into the woods almost, in terms of shielding the Holly Court residents from the rear of our residents in the duplexes along the back. Let me just zoom out a hair here, and you see that continues the whole way down here. Things spread out a little bit more in this back corner just because we have a little more space. And then we are preserving all of these evergreens along the south side, and then filling in the missing area by planting additional arborvitaes to screen to the south. So if we zoom in over here to this rear screening buffer, this is just a cross section just to show exactly what we are proposing. So the existing evergreens are approximately 40 feet in height. Our proposed deciduous trees that I spoke about, the shade ones, range in mature height from about 28 to 40. So we'd be looking on the low side right around this 30-foot mark. We do have these 8-foot bents, 8-foot bushes for mature height. I have them shown at 6 just to help understand the visual of where they're going to get before they meet full maturity. And then the proposed proposed fencing is just squeezing right in here. And again, that is that black estate fencing. We should see this bush as it continues to grow, actually putting limbs through this fence to essentially hide it, that it won't be an eyesore for anybody, will grow in and blend into the environment we're proposing. For scale, these are to peak the 23-foot duplex units. How tall they will be in comparison to the evergreens themselves. This is a scaled distance from the setback. So you can see here 46 feet, 40 feet, everything is to scale. And just in case folks need a reference, this is a 2-scale crew cab F-150. So this is what we're looking at for what this is going to look like for a cross section along this back area. All right. Let's move on to, hold on, sorry. Let's jump back up to a little bit of the construction sequence. So we are going to be proposing running a silt fence along the entire downhill perimeters of the property. Areas with larger slopes, like along these berms on the downhill side, we are going to be encasing that in silt fence as well. As part of construction, we will be putting a construction entrance, which essentially is an anti-track gravel pad that's designed to knock loose any dirt on vehicles entering and exiting the site, just to isolate this site from the Berlin Turnpike to prevent any soil transportation into the turnpike itself. We are looking to keep our stockpiles as much as possible centrally located. The first step of this is going to be coming in, installing the in-ground utilities, and we're going to just try and keep as much of this stockpile material in the center of the site for as long as possible. Once we get to a point where we do have to install these underground utilities, or the underground stormwater system, these two stockpiles are no longer to be used. We just don't want to be stockpiling soil material on top of those infiltrator units for any length of time. So let me just zoom out here and I believe I addressed parking setbacks, going through detail sheet, just to understand why we don't want to be stacking on top of these any type of sizable material for a long period of time. These units are plastic arches. They do provide a lot of strength, especially once they're installed and backfilled with gravel, but they are hollow units that water will fill up and then infiltrate through the units, not only through the bottom, but they are perforated along the sides, and that allows water to essentially fill up this whole gravel void all around it. And that's the concept behind these stormwater systems. The two units, the isolator row likewise functions. This row is wrapped in filter fabric, so water fills into that. It then, once you hit the flush point, would bypass, not only filtering through these, but bypass into the remainder of the units and then fill from there. I believe this covers, for the most part, everything we're looking at. Photometrics. So what we are proposing for the photometrics here is to keep our main lighting as centrally located as possible. By building code, every unit has to have lights for the doorway access, and that's state building code. On the local end, the town does require have a maximum and minimum lumen rating for these parking and then parking sidewalks. So by having a couple of, I'm going to call them floodlights, but really they're more area lights. It's a better term, area lights. For the parking, each unit will have their own parking area lights to, during the dark hours, light this area. And then we will have a couple of central street lights around the corners just to light up these areas where cars would be needing to make a turn and just make visibility on site overall a little bit brighter. At that point, I want to open it up if there are any questions, comments, or Pat or Chris, if I've missed anything you want me to go over, please direct me where I need to go.
Commissioner, any questions? Yes.
I noticed that there's indication that you're gonna be removing the hydrant. Are you gonna be replacing that anywhere?
Correct. Yes, we will be. We actually, sorry, we have 2 fire hydrants. Let me, site plan's going to be. Yeah. this one. We are replacing with two Mueller 5 1/4 hydrants. First one is going to be right up front. This hydrant is just not going to survive construction purposes, so remove it, replace it with a new standard model right at the front of the site. The other one is located almost directly on the other side of the loop here. So we will be having two fire hydrants on site instead of just the one by the turnpike.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question, and it's going to be about the infiltration system, because I realized as you're going through the plan that you have the two systems, one in the center aisle and one up in the northwest corner. And both of these facilities, I guess you want to call it, or infiltration systems, seem to be located over the community grounds that were also designated. So my question is how deep are these infiltration systems going to be planted? Or are they close to the surface so that if there is a heavy rain, there's a ponding or flooding in the community spaces?
So, excellent question. So the twofold answer is these units are slightly mounded. Not enough that you're going to be able to look and say, that is clearly where the unit is at perfect tabletop, but the units are slightly mounded versus the surrounding surface. They're buried approximately on the low end, 6 inches below grade, on the high end, closer to a foot on the units in the center. But water likes to seek its level. So when these units fill up, the infiltration, it's actually referred to as a cone of influence. Easiest way to imagine it is a pyramid. So these units will essentially have water coming down in a pyramid at an angle about 30 to 60 degrees, depending how you're looking at it. From this will be infiltrating into the ground. They're designed to not have a pressure head, which is what would be required to force water up to the surface. Water falls out of them into the ground. So it's not a push up motion, it's a push down. And due to the mounding, these units are underground. As said, water is designed and should sheet flow off of them. So as rain falls on top of these units, because they're underground, the water should flow over the unit and then away like natural grade. In terms of will there be water visible at the surface? No more than any regular lawn when it rains. From a aesthetic standpoint, people won't notice they're there.
Okay, I was just concerned that with the limited community space, they seem to be part of the community space, so that I'm interested to see if there was going to be a lot of swaling perhaps around this raised area. Will it create like a...
So we're looking I understand the question. Okay. So let's go to the stormwater one where we actually have a little bit of grading and call outs, and that should help us a little bit better understand that. So what this unit, the central unit is going to be almost invisible. You can see that this contour, we have a little bit of a kick. So it's going to be a little bit, instead of it being perfectly flat, there's going to be a bit of a bow out, and you'll have a flat area, a slightly steeper taper off, and then back to regular grade. And I mean, and we're talking, it's going to be maybe 3 inches worth of elevation change over a distance of somewhere in the 5 to 6 feet category. It's not going to be perceivable of, oh my God, that's where the stormwater system is. It'll just look like there's a slight change in grade. The other unit is going to be slightly more tabled, but what we're looking at as we get to the back here, this entire area is fairly flat. Let me just so we have the exact numbers. This is sheet 4. We'll go to sheet 4.
I guess what my question goes to is the community sort of center or community space. So I understand what you're saying. I guess my concern is that the space that's going to be occupied by this system is also still going to be usable by the residents. In other words, would somebody be able to plant like a little community garden there?
A raised garden, I would say yes. I would lean against a in-ground garden. So if someone was to come around wanting to put in the community wants to put some sort of raised garden unit beds, that would be acceptable. On the low end, like I said, these are going to have 6 inches of soil cover over the gravel system itself, that is adequate. That is what you typically see for established lawn root is 6 inches worth of grass growing. So will it be usable space in terms of if someone wants to come in and start growing corn? No, it will not be. But in terms of kids, adults, whatnot, playing a game of frisbee on top of them, absolutely, it's just going to be a lawn space. Should the community decide that they want to put some raised gardens in, I think that's something that these units would be more than capable of handling, as well as the concern is you don't want to be excavating material over these. So if you're adding material, that's less of a concern than digging down and putting something that's going to have a foot, 2 foot of root growth straight down into the system itself.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any commissioners? Tim,
The last time we were here about these plans, there was a question about the lighting units themselves, which lighting units were being used where. And I'm just want to know the urban lighting ones, those are the poles, the regular street poles.
Yeah, let me navigate over there real quick. Hang tight with me. All right, let's go to. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna zoom in over here on these guys. Do forgive how my computer's rendering around these lights a bit. But the Stonco lights, these are door lights. These are next to doors. These are next to the sidewalks. These Guardco lights, they have a wall mount option. They will be the wall mounted over the parking areas themselves. So these will be on the side of the units, lighting these areas in the parking zones themselves. The Hadco units, we are going to use the top pole mount option, and these are going to be functioning as street lights and area lights along the roadway or a driveway, along the driveway.
Entrance doors are going to have the pack light up there, the stone coal light, or the.
The Stoneco light will be next to the doors, correct?
Okay, so the first urban light is a wall mounted light. Next one's are pole mounted lights. And the urban light, next to the door, the wall mounted urban light would be better than the pack light up here. The first light, the top light. That's why I'm asking the question. You know, usually the decorated light next to the entrance door and the pack light over the garage door. Lighting up the driveway.
or you could just use the urban light and just use the different members of that family. One for the lamppost, and we could put sconces out on either side of the garage, and you could put one by the door. And this way, at least because one sort of looks a little antiquated, which is lovely, it's charming. The other one looks a little bit contemporary. And I think if you try to stay within the same family, I think because they all offer a different type of lighting, whether it be pole or mounted, so. But that would be my
So just to point out on this, the light options selected were specifically to comply with your zoning regulations in terms of providing maximum and minimum foot candles. These, in a perfect world, I like to use one light across the site, but even minimizing some of these lights out, I can't hit that minimum and maximum foot candle requirements. And as such, based on where these lights shine, where the Stoncos, they don't provide a large area, but they provide a small focus light. The Guardco providing more of a projecting out light, and the Hadco having more of an area, a downward cone light provided, allows me to best meet the intent of your published regulations. And that's why these lights were selected.
That's what's that with the new LED lights in these I call antique looking lights.
Well, yeah, there's
Uh,
New England.
do have more kilowatts or water to light going out, those new white LEDs, bright white light LEDs. So I think you probably, I don't know if you're taking that into consideration. I did it on my lights where I have red bulbs and I put LED lights in there, which is night and day. That's why I don't want them spraying it myself. So just using the bulbs and the LEDs last longer and look nicer.
I think so. Okay. Anyone else? Steve Biella online, do you have any questions? All right, none from Steve, so June.
Yes, back to the drainage page. You had mentioned in that community corner, is it the southwest corner where there's a northwest? If it's an overflow, it takes off for areas down toward the neighboring line. How does that impact? What does that go into as it runs off? If it's an overrun or an overfill, how does that impact the side?
So there's two elements of this. One is a lot of people would concerned with overflow is it going to erode? And that would be transporting silts, fines, what have you down. What the level spreader is designed to do is it decrease it. Essentially, flow is volume over area. So what this does is it increases the area that the volume is crossing over so that you see a slower velocity leaving the site. So you're not going to see major erosional concerns. In addition to that, the level spreader is feeding onto riprap, which again slows this velocity of this water down, so you're not going to see erosion. So that's first. That may not address your concern, but I know that that's always one that comes up: is if we're pumping water out of this, is it going to be eating away? So the intent of the level spreader is to mitigate that and prevent that from happening. The second is this level spreader is feeding off into the existing drainage swale and wetlands that exists along that the Berlin Turnpike and essentially other commercial properties are currently utilizing. Now, I know there's concerns about the wetlands itself, but that is why we're decreasing the flow that this site was putting onto this wetland. So we are flowing water out, but we are flowing less. Our peak flows are less than how the previous development was. So we're decreasing our flows off-site, even though we are directing them directly towards this wetland over here.
And I think that's what I was trying to pull out of your information there. And then one last question, our neighbors on Holly Court, will they see an increased flow, a decreased flow, about the same, any kind of water runoff once we get all these measures in place? What's their impact gonna be?
So for the most part, this site as presently developed, as the motel development had, there was not a lot of water beginning directed towards Holly Court. The site was pitched naturally or man-made. I wasn't around when it was first developed, so I'm not sure where development stopped, but it was pitched to direct water towards this wetland up top. What we are doing now, we are not proposing to change that grade to pitch water towards Holly Court. And in fact, areas that previously may have been sheeting water to Holly Court are now being graded. Essentially, the buildings, as I motion to my screen with my hand, which no one can see, these buildings, we are taking this water. And I suspect the previous units that were back here, let's go back to my first page. Actually, you can see the old units here. These squares are the old motel buildings. These units did not have an underground detention system. So I suspect that these most likely had roof leaders that were pouring water off in various directions. We are now taking this area, we're turning this area that was paved and impervious to grass, and we are taking all of these buildings and infiltrating this water. So I would suspect a decrease in water being directed towards Holly Court because we are increasing our pervious surface and we are taking the impervious we are putting there and we are directly putting it into the ground.
You good, Jim? All right, thank you. Anyone else? From the public? We should move to the public now. Is anyone online who wishes to address the commission regarding this? I know we've taken a lot of testimony over many, many months. But I'm just looking for feedback from this, concerns that you may have. And this way we can just move forward. So anyone online who wishes to comment? Maureen, do you see anyone? No. All right, and then I will go to.
Sorry, I wasn't on, so not at this time. I don't
Okay, I
see
didn't
any
see
raised
anyone.
hands and I don't see anyone.
And then so, anyone here in the public who wishes to address the commission, I would just ask you to sign in.
We do have.
Oh, we do. Oh, they've already signed. Oh,
I'm
good.
sorry, I'm trying to, this morning, I'm gonna try to do our talk,
Okay.
much speaking, so
Thank you.
Sherry Rice. Is number one speaker and John, probably gonna pronounce it wrong, but Sadowski is the second speaker, so.
Okay.
And that's all we have signed up right now.
All righty, terrific.
I'll leave it. I will leave it for, well,
Yeah, okay.
I'll decide.
And then, because you'll be right up, you're John, correct? So just be ready to address the commission when she's finished. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Rex.
Good evening. I am actually speaking for Linda Alstrand, who could not be here this evening because she is traveling. She did send something she would like to have read.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for keeping do I need to give her address or my address? She's Sherry Rice, 38 Holly Court, speaking for Linda Alstrand, which is 48 Holly Court. Thank you for keeping the 46.5-foot buffer for our Holly Court neighborhood. The craftsman style units will have a much better look than the previous offerings. Moving the larger Coltech drainage system further back from the wetlands provides more time for the water to move through the system into the wetlands and the streams. This concentrated drainage results from roofs and impervious surfaces on 1676 and will add an additional water to the stream culvert behind Holly Court properties. There is still great concern for the flooding of the backyards and lower levels with more major storm events like the last one, which just happened on December 18th. The revised October 17th, 2022 site plan showed a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence on the property line. My understanding was that the commission was in agreement with this. We are requesting that you hold it to a vinyl privacy fence on the western boundary because of the abutting residential properties. This is a safety and peace of mind issue, especially for 51 and 48 Holly. Both the state and vinyl privacy fencing are on the current site plan. Please give us a brown privacy fence on the western boundary. Our side will never have to be cleaned. The good and nice side could face the units. I would be happy to give the developer permission in writing to come on my property to maintain his trees and fencing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Evening. John Suzanowski,
Good evening.
owner of Rolling Meadow Center next door.
Mhm.
Looking at the plan, it looks pretty good to me. My biggest concern was the swale. And it looks like,
Sorry, could you lean into the mic or pick up the other mic? Because you're not.
can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I really lean into that one. I'm sorry.
My concern will be alleviated. Looks like no water will be going into that swale or very little. I'm okay with the plan. The plan looks pretty good. I mean, got 18 little homes in there and they did a good job.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. Taking some feedback. trying to-
2 years now?
I know, Jesus.
Okay, that's all I've got. So it looks pretty good.
All right. Thank you.
I'm okay with it.
Thank you. And that's it, right? Anyone else? Okay, just go ahead, I'll turn to our attorney then.
So just very quickly, I wanted to address a couple of, the points about the affordability plan. I know that you all received, another copy of that. Just with regard to the term of affordability, I'm gonna hand you.
Didn't run them over around the paper in that big room.
That's on page 7. So the applicant has agreed, to 50 years.
Oh. That makes me a little bit happy.
And as far as the administrator, the approval of the administrator, the applicant has agreed to some language that I drafted with regard to that. It's mentioned earlier, but if you turn to page 13, it really sets out that. First of all, compliance reports, that last paragraph there, the first 6, well, really 7 paragraphs have to do with the responsibilities, if you will, the duties of the administrator. The town planner, is gonna receive the annual report on January 31st. That's pretty standard, typically see January's milk. Below that, I did revise that, now says that the selection designation of the administrator is subject to submission to confirmation of receipt by the town planner of a signed sworn statement executed by the proposed administrator in the presence of a notary public, that the proposed administrator is qualified, experienced, and capable of performing the duties enumerated above, and specifically attesting to, and these are 2 different things. To the proposed administrator's qualifications, experience, and abilities to serve as administrator, and his or their commitment to perform said enumerated duties. And it goes on, and if the proposed administrator has not previously served as an administrator, then certain performance standards and monitoring requirements for the administrator may be imposed. Any proposed change in administrator shall be promptly reported to the town planner and require submission of a signed sworn statement for the newly proposed administrator. So just kind of reinserting what's, if you will, clarifying what's in the box that followed. And then I changed the information piece of it that followed to just indicate receipt of a signed sworn statement for the following to serve as initial administrators confirmed. So that's what we did on that, and the applicant's in agreement. So those, I think, were the 2 primary issues as far as the affordability plan is concerned.
Jennifer, just really quick, where is it noted about the 50 years? Is that on page?
That's on page 7.
Okay,
I think that's going to be on page 7. You'll see that first box on those midterm of restrictions is checked. Glenn, if you want to conform, Glenn Chalmers just gonna.
I see 40 years, but I don't, it says 40.
So that was just, I think that was something we came in after this.
Oh, okay, all right.
I think the way Jared Lynch, Alder for the record, I think the way this form is set up on page 7, there's actually two components to it. The first component is the initial term of restrictions, which says 40. And below that is subsequent term of restrictions, and that's where the box is checked, there's an automatic renewal for another 10 years. Let the applicant proposes an alternative to which the commission accepts.
Okay. All right, okay. All right, thank you, I'll go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And is there anything else, Commissioner? All right, so let's do. Well,
So you do have the option, because it is on your agenda, to go into executive
Excuse
session.
me, excuse me, Jennifer. Sorry.
Okay.
Town
Okay.
attorney.
Yes. Attorney Smith.
Just very quickly, good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the commission. Thank you. I'd like to, on behalf of the team and in particular Patrick Snow, thank the commission, your town attorney and town planner for your efforts to get us to where we are this evening. Just 3 comments on the stipulation since you're going to be voting on it. And I know I had sent these to your town attorney Capola, Jennifer, earlier this morning. But there were 2 typos and just 1 clarification. I just wanted to make sure the commission was aware of if you vote on this this evening. At the top of on page 3 of the stipulation, there is a typo. Attorney Capola, I think you received this email. I don't know if that was incorporated or not. But anyways, page 3 at the top, there's a first line. The word "and" should be deleted from any final permits. If we go to page 7, we just need to add in paragraph 8, the 3rd line down after the word Connecticut, add the word approving instead of the of, so it would be approving all regulated activities. And then the last comment is on page 9 in paragraph 17. And Attorney Capola did walk you through that one, in particular, that paragraph concerning the time periods involved and with the section 8-8N hearing and withdrawing the other appeals, the pending appeals. After 3rd line down, after the word time frame, to add "and subject to paragraph A, comma, herein, comma, the pending applications shall be withdrawn." Paragraph 8 is the reference to obtaining approval from the Wetlands Commission that the regulated activities associated with this plan are approved, either within the scope of the prior existing permit or that we receive another one. So I just wanted to make those 3 comments. Again, just 2 are typos, and the other one I was just hoping to insert that other phrase for clarification purposes. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and again, for everybody's efforts.
Okay, thank you. And could you, the last edit, Attorney Smith, can you just give me a read on it again? Because I.
Oh, sure, Madam Chair, no problem. At page 9, paragraph 17.
Okay.
3rd line down, it should say in red line version of any applicable judicial appeal time frame, and then just add "and subject to paragraph 8, comma, herein, comma." So once the time periods that Attorney Capola had indicated have expired, and relative to an appeal and any appeal time frame, and we've received the wetlands permit, then my client would be withdrawing the pending applications as part of the stipulation that you've been working on.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Smith.
And again, thank you.
So unfortunately, Attorney Smith and Attorney Capola, again, for the record, did not have an opportunity to speak because I was not available when he was available. So I haven't gone through all of this with staff in terms of whether or not we have any concerns whatsoever as far as the wetlands are concerned. So I am going to ask you, if you're inclined to vote tonight, that you move the normal motion would be to authorize me to sign stipulated judgment, but also to negotiate any additional revisions that may be needed on your behalf, and myself and staff and your consultant on your behalf. I think most of it looks fine to me. There were a couple of things that I noticed as well. But again, just unfortunately, given some circumstances I'm dealing with right now, I just did not have the opportunity to communicate with him. So I think that that's what makes the most sense, because I think, we'll be able to come to, any final language through our typical process of working cooperatively with counsel and his client. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you. Thank everyone involved. Anything else from the commission? Maureen, do you have anything you want to add? Okay, great, that's fine.
Glenn Shelter for the record, I do recall we had a conversation at our earlier meeting about the temperature of the light bulbs. And I noticed in the specs, they're still up in the 4,000 range for some of the bulbs. So I just like for the commission's action perhaps, or stipulated judgment perhaps, to allow for continuing discussion of those temperatures. The fixtures stay the same, all the other stuff stays the same, but it had to do with the starkness of the light in a lower bulb temperature. The light specs, which have been provided by Zach Ducho, options at 2,700 degrees Kelvin and 3,000 degrees Kelvin, and some of the lights are spec'd at 4,000 degrees Kelvin. So if it's possible and prudent to downshift those lights, but it is somewhat technical in nature, so I think if you just give us the ability to work this out with the applicant, I think that would.
Yeah, especially the aesthetics of the lighting too.
I think it's, the brighter, whiter light is a little harsher. I think it'll be more gentle. And again, we'll just work this out.
Okay, all right.
So on that same subject, one of my thoughts was, would be typical with a site plan that would go through the normal process, you might ask that the lighting, the applicant consider lighting in the same family, similar to the, and I just lost my note that said which family it was in, I think Henkel. And then, and work with staff to find something either that light or similar, and see if they could find something that made the lighting more consistent with each other, so they're not three
Different varieties.
different styles.
Yeah.
So, and that again, be something that they could work with staff typically, and that's what you find appropriate. They meant to write that down, this is Maureen again, and I would just like to comment on a couple of things, and most of them, again, I think, I did make some, editing notes on the plans as far as, you know, add a section to the of the regulation where they're being referred to and some things like that. Then those, again, is provided for that in the stipulation, provides for that to be rectified with the applicant, so we can work through those things. I just want to pull up a couple of them that I was concerned with, being of record and making sure that the commission was fine with referencing the section 11C of the regulations is the landscape regulations. And just for the record, 2.5 inch plantings at 6 inches above the root collar is required for trees. Evergreen not less than 6 feet in height and 2.5 inch spread for coniferous shrubs is what's in the regulations. So making sure that's acceptable at the time of planting, all the way around the all parties. And then I had a concern as to whether or not you'd want a statement added by council that addresses that the existing non-conforming motel use is abandoned, a claim to that non-conformity is abandoned with the execution of the plan.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
If that was a question at the end there, Chris Smith, for the record, about abandonment of a non-conforming use or any non-conforming use, I will discuss that with my client, and I think that the timing would be more appropriate when a building permit, at minimum, when a building permit is issued for the units that are being approved with this stipulation, if indeed the commission chooses to approve it. But I can certainly follow up on that, Madam Chairwoman, and members of the commission, with town attorney and your town planner. Thank you.
Execution. Your Steve. The construction side execution, sorry for that confusion, but I was referring to them. Starting the building, then abandoning. With my intent.
Anything else? All right, go June.
Should we discuss or visit about the fence at all? Or help explain what we were thinking of with the estate fence and the shrubs being healthy because it's a open fence?
Yeah, it's an open fence and the air flows through and it doesn't block anyone's light. Whereas, a solid vinyl fence, can look, unless it's maintained and power washed or whatever, it can get nasty looking. And it also kind of, it just stops airflow. There's a lot of negatives with it. I think you're much better off with the estate fencing.
The state fencing allows those new shrubbery to grow,
Yeah,
and they will fill in that estate fencing, basically. Fence will be there, but the branches will grow through it
yeah,
and, you know, and not go up to vinyl and, you know.
yeah. Maybe there's something new I'd like to add to.
No, I think I'm in favor of what we've selected and just trying to share, you know, with our audience too, why we were looking at that. We had talked the white vinyl fencing, but our concern is that the light wouldn't get through and our shrubs might not thrive. They might be this way. It can also grow through the fencing and become more plants and natural barrier. Although the fence is still there to prevent people from going through, the safety is still there, but it becomes more natural.
Yeah, you end up with an evergreen wall as opposed to a vinyl wall.
To dovetail on that, I have another reason for the estate over the vinyl is very fragile. And it could get broken easily, and then you're looking at an eyesore. With the state fencing, it's a much hardier fence. And with that green wall behind it, we think it's gonna be much more appealing in the long run.
Especially with the ground shrubs that he's gonna be putting in the rhododendrons, so.
Used to say vinyl is forever, but vinyl is not
No,
forever.
no, and and unfortunately, I know some neighbors who have had theirs vandalized. With spray paint or whatever, and it's just not attractive, and then you have to set the time to go and clean it and stuff. I don't know, it's a lot of drawbacks. All right, anyway, and anything else? Okay, so, at the pleasure of the commission, we can either deliberate this, today.
Make a motion to close the public comment sections and then.
So you want a motion to close the comments, all right, and do you want to just go ahead right into?
And then we'll go to deliberation.
Okay,
And so,
and we'll do that here, and not in executive session,
We'll second that.
okay? All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Zigmont, we have a second by Mr. Logan, okay, so who would like to begin? Logan? Yeah, motion, we could do that, on all those in favor, I'm.
Steve.
I don't want to pause, Steve Biella.
Aye, sorry, I didn't unmute myself.
So. Yeah. Maybe we talked it through and.
I personally think that, even through this meeting tonight, and previous meeting with the applicant, and, that it ended up being probably the best proposal we have on that piece of property, because they kept the 46 foot away from the property lines in the belt. They did the water problem and lowered the rate on the water discharge. And everything that was asked for with the community green and the road is going to one-way road, which took out the two-way traffic at the beginning and the worry about fire trucks and everything else. Now it's
Kind of gave it a
way
sense
so
of
we keep
neighborhood.
it wide enough for fire trucks. I think it's both improves awful lot, you know, and, it's right now, I like the proposal.
Jude, do you have any comment? I see you nodding your head, so I think you would like to chime in.
I'd enjoy chiming in. I'd like to,
Chiming in.
I'd like to thank the attorney and our town planner and the applicant and their team.
How about the commission?
And the commission. There's was a large sense of sharing and, accommodating and listening to each other and making compromises. So I think that was really helpful in coming to what we we're looking at in front of us now. And what I see is a much better view from Holly Court, for water safety, for drainage, much more green space, which were all things that we originally had showed concerns for. Also with, like I say handicap, but there's another term for it, but accessibility, with the sidewalk, the mail center. So a lot of that has been added to this plan, and I'm in favor of what I'm seeing, definitely.
All right. Anyone else on this side? Anyone want to comment? Right.
I will make the motion to approve, Attorney Capola signing the stipulated judgment with the ability with our staff and our consultant to negotiate any additional revisions that may be needed. And also for the continuing discussion of bulb temperatures with Mr. Schulder and working with staff on lighting styles.
Okay.
Can
We
I,
have
can
a
I say
motion.
the all comments and conditions on the map?
So amended.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Ms. Jorsy, go right ahead.
We need to, amend our motion.
Okay.
So, we also need to include, in the motion that the plantings need to conform with section 11C of the regulations. And that the motel use, will be abandoned upon issuance of a permit to construct. And that all conditions will be noted on the plans.
Okay, and would you like to amend?
I will amend my motion to contain Commissioner Jorcy's comments.
Okay,
Second.
okay.
One
Further discussion?
The lighting back, we looked at the urban type lighting. back.
Yeah, he did
Okay.
cover the lighting and the 50 years or whatever that we have. Everything else we did. All right, any other discussion? So we have a motion and we have a second. So all those in favor? Those opposed? So moved.
I don't need a roll, do I? No.
Do you have, I don't think you have to do a roll call because there was no. All right. So with that, I say, I think we ended up with a good project.
Year and a half. though.
Hoping to see it built and, I hope it becomes around town on the turnpike.
Thank you.
And so I just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and thank you for coming. Anyone want to, Mr. Snell, and for turning up, nice to meet you. And, on that, we close this item out. So now we'll move on. I don't know. A Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and happy and healthy to everybody and your families. Thank you.
Thank you, and likewise, Merry Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you for hanging in there. Yeah, I like the show. Okay, so do we have to move on to, old business or what do we go from here? Old business is about we took care of everything,
we did that.
right? Glenn, you were, basically, thank you.
You are.
Thank you.
We really have been on board. I think we're just gonna have to just hire it. Another inspection.
First thing you have to do is make it more comfortable benches.
I know, isn't it awful? I'm thinking of bringing like this, like, if I'm in church, that we have pews that are.
I cushion.
Yeah, you,
I know.
you, the football.
Cushion.
So things we have, yes,
So I think,
What do we got?
and unfortunately, Attorney Smith, jumped off before the, procedurally made sure he was in agreement. But I think the old business, you.
We could skip it.
No, it needs to be continued. To the, I guess, at least January 18th. About the appropriate. The stipulated judgment says that this will be, the stipulated judgment, if I, without turning to the right page, says something along the lines of, it'll be withdrawn once it's executed in the
Right.
legal sense. And
But-
then,
Should we just do
But
a
the
general
proposed-
motion to continue both items I wanted?
yeah, but, wait, well, don't you have one that has to, they have to be decided by January 3rd?
Yes, but they're agreeing in the stipulation, to essentially be able to go beyond that.
Okay, so,
So, yeah, that is, I read the paragraph, is now paragraph,
Mr. Snow might still be downstairs.
and then,
I don't think he's,
18 as well.
it's on page 9 and 10, the last page, it's the last paragraph,
Okay.
9 into 10. And it just, that this,
all right, so we're just taking a motion to move those two items? Continue.
Motion to continue both items 1 and 2 of old business to our meeting on January 18th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second by Ms. Dorsey, further discussion, all those in favor?
All right.
All right, and then you have the executive session. So no, do we have to do this, really? It's gonna be short and sweet. Short, sweet, quick. Okay, so I'm gonna take a motion to move into executive session.
We're going into executive session, and I will invite our attorney, Nicola, and our staff, Maureen Juicy.
And also Steve Biella. Because he's, on the other side. All right,
He's got a call in.
all right, Merry Christmas, okay. All righty, so we have a motion, do we have a second? Second by Ms. Jorsey, the time is going to be,
adjourn the meeting from executive.
yeah, and
session.
we're also, and when we come back from executive session, we'll be adjourning the meeting, so there will be no other business. That the public, that we need participation from the public or that would be shared at this time. Okay, so, all the Zoom meeting will end. The Zoom meeting is going to end now, and Steve Biel will stand by, we'll get in touch with you. And
Thank you.
also- Aye.
Right.
So, 8:43. Ms. Jorsey.
I know. No, I don't.